Hey everybody, it's Scott Hollister, the editor-in-chief of GCSAA's Golf Course Management Magazine, and welcome back to another presentation of GCSAA TV's Live from the Course. Whether you are a repeat viewer or are joining us for the very first time, certainly appreciate you tuning in today, and I hope that you and yours are safe and healthy wherever it is you're tuning in from. So before we get going, a quick refresher: Live from the Course is a joint production of GCSAA TV, GCSAA, and GCM Magazine, where we sit down for a conversation with notable folks from around the golf course management industry, just to check in to see how they're doing, how they're managing both personally and professionally in the era of coronavirus, and also talk about a bunch of other topics that don't necessarily have anything to do with the pandemic, which is, I think, a nice break for all of us. It's been a fun opportunity so far. I've really enjoyed it. And I think we've got another good one for you today in the person of Alan Fitzgerald, who is the GCSAA Class A Superintendent at LedgeRock Golf Club in Mohnton, Pennsylvania. Alan, welcome to Live from the Course. How are you doing today?
Good, Scott. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited you could join us today. So I'm going to set the stage a little bit before we get going. In the July issue of GCM, which should be hitting your inboxes or mailboxes any day now, we have a feature story on a recent renovation project that Alan oversaw at LedgeRock that was unique and unusual for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which was that all of the work took place during the heart of the pandemic and all the restrictions and changes that brought about. So we're going to get to all of that with Alan as we go along, but to get us started here, I'm not sure, Alan, how many viewers know much about LedgeRock. I know I didn't before we started working on the feature story, and really learned what kind of a unique place it is. So maybe let's start by having you tell us a little bit about the club, kind of what makes it special in your eyes, and then a little bit about yourself. You don't have as much of an accent. I don't know how much we're giving away to people, but as you will explain, you are not a Pennsylvania native. So why don't you tell us the story of LedgeRock and tell us your story to get us going?
Well, I'll tell you my story first and how we ended up at LedgeRock. So I'm originally from Ireland. Grew up around golf my entire life. My dad played in the local club, was just right outside the front door of the house, basically. And I guess I was kind of destined to fall into this. And then in my early teens, my mom got a job at Mount Juliet, which was the first big one of the resorts in Ireland, Jack Nicklaus Design Golf Course. And I got a summer job there, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I really like it. It's more than just what I was brought up with a small local golf club, and saw kind of more the American style of turf management. So I decided to pursue it as a career. The superintendent there, Aidan Harrow, was one of the first non-American certified superintendents. So he was very much encouraging me to go to the US and to school over here and get to college in the US. So I got into Penn State in '96, I think, to the 2-year program. And from there, my visa, the way things worked out, I had a 12-month option at the end of that to stay in the States. So I took that opportunity. I ended up getting a job at Pine Valley as an assistant superintendent in New Jersey. And after 6 or 7 years there, and working through the immigration process numerous times in different ways, I ended up at LedgeRock, which was a new construction at the time in 2006. So wasn't quite my plan for life to end up staying here, but life happened, and here I am. So LedgeRock is in Mohnton, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour west of Philadelphia. It's not far off the turnpike, and it was set up to be just a members fun golf club. I think when they initially expected it, they didn't expect the course itself to end up as tough as it did. So definitely as a golfer's club, it has a slope of 155 in the tips, and it is certainly a challenge. So that's really what makes it unique more than anything else around, is it is a golfer's club for golfers, and it is really tough. So Reese Jones designed it. He had a pretty difficult terrain to work with, which certainly added to the toughness of it, but he did a really massive job with the routing and the land he was given, and here we are today. And I actually believe it was the last private golf club to open in Pennsylvania, which is kind of shocking when you think back at how during the boom and prior to that, how quickly they were open.
Right, and you have both. You have mainly local members. I know you have some national members as well. How does that break down for you guys?
I'm not sure the exact breakdown. You know, we've tapped the local market here in Reading, which is a major city nearby. You know, it's Berkshire Country Club is the other kind of higher end club in the area, and you know, so we between the two of us, we kind of tapped the higher end memberships. But you know, we are also 25 minutes from Lancaster, so we've tapped into that market. There is a lot of pretty decent golf in the area, you know, within 20-mile radius. So beyond that, we have our non-resident members, which has been growing substantially over the last year and or a couple of years actually. And in the last year, they're really going to push more and you know further out than that with more. You know, I know of at least a dozen you know people from like South Jersey and stuff that have seen the value and are making the trip up too. So that national membership is the new growth area for us too, because people are starting to realize, you know, again, it's a golfers club and they want to be part of it and be part of the challenge, which is really exciting.
What sort of crew size are you dealing with in terms of maintenance? Do you have labor issues in your part of the world? Obviously, the last 3 months or so have probably, I know from a lot of people, have thrown just a new wrinkle into what was already a troublesome issue for a lot of superintendents. But how has that been for you at LedgeRock, and how did coronavirus and everything challenge you in terms of staffing?
Like everybody, up to a couple of years ago, you know, when everyone was struggling, we certainly struggled too, and it was helping at the end of the year to be under budget, at least one line item, and to make the numbers. But yeah, it was very difficult to staff to budget. Right now, we you know we're somewhere in the region of 30 to 32 staff members, including myself, assistants, mechanics, and seasonal staff, and that's full time in the summer. You know, over the winter, we're probably around 10 or so staff members all year round. And that number has grown the last few years too, with some more projects and some more stuff that we've been doing over the winter. Prior to that, we had probably 5 to 6. So we really invested about 3, 4, 5 years ago. We really started investing and trying to get through the crux of what was happening with the labor market, and you know we were out competing against like landscape companies, and you know paid you know under the table cash pay, and you know $17-18 an hour. It was you know it's a lot harder work, but you know so we're trying to work out. So we made a concerted effort to start trying to get ahead of any potential raises in the you know the minimum wage, and just start raising wages across the board. And we kind of had a year where we lost a lot of staff just for one reason or another, guys moving away from the area and just through a greater attrition. So it was kind of a good year to reset. So we were able to, you know, we didn't have as many people to bring up to kind of reset the starting wage for the existing staff. So that was our biggest starting point. And from there, it seems to have grown in the last couple of years. We've had very little turnover. You know, college kids, high school kids in the summer, we've been pretty lucky getting them into. So knock on wood, we've had a good track record the last few years of being maintained or being staffed to budget. And then this year with the coronavirus, we coincided with a seasonably cool spring this year. So that really helped us on the back end. So we were just about to bring most of this full-time seasonal staff back right when it hit. So we were just kind of put them on pause for a few weeks. Luckily, the weather just stayed cool. We're 100% bank grass, so with the cool weather, it just shut completely down. So we kind of got in this nice little window where we didn't need the staff back, and kind of got lucky with minimizing the amount of staff that stuck around. And it also helped us get the project finished up into obviously 17 by you know the few guys we had around were able to, when we needed them, to send them on that. So yeah, overall, we've been really lucky the last couple of years, and hopefully we can continue the trend going forward.
Yeah, that's it's a great segue into kind of talking about the renovation, because what first caught my eye when I saw the story, just a brief kind of update that I had gotten that you guys were pursuing a renovation of one of your holes, was obviously just the timing. It was the release came in probably mid-March, mid to late March when I first saw that, and it is my first thought, and I'm sure a lot of folks in our business first thought would be, well, how in the heck are you able to complete a renovation, even if it's only of one hole, in the midst of all this and the restrictions and the things that were going on? So we pursued that story, and it turned into, there's a lot of different little tentacles too that make it unique, not just the fact that you were able to knock it out during the pandemic. So it's your 17th hole, correct? A par 4 there at LedgeRock. Why don't you tell us about what was the old hole? It was your #1 handicap hole. What made the old routing and design so challenging, and what changes were you pursuing when you renovated that hole?
So I guess just to back up a small little bit further that, so obviously being a new golf course, building a golf course even 15 years ago, it was a lot more difficult with restrictions on earth moving and then environmental restrictions and whatnot. So there was a lot of initial plans and ideas and thoughts that Reese and Keith Evans, he's architect that worked in the project with us at the time, wanted to do, but we were only restricted to so many acres we could, so it's kind of like which variation of it do we want to do? So once the course was built and everything matured and kind of got in, we've been working with Reese on and off over the years, as the course matured and we're like, okay, this hole's a little little tougher, or this isn't exactly what we wanted. And prime example being number 10 last year, which I think was mentioned. I know we talked about it. There was a tee box on that they always wanted to put in, but we just weren't allowed to put there just because we weren't able to disturb that area at the time. So, we put that in, the bunkers needed rebuilding and everything, so we just ended up renovating the entire hole pretty much except for the green complex. So that stemmed the project for number 17, which was the #1 index hole. It was the next kind of big project. It got the members excited about, wow, we can go do this and get it done. And the issue with 17 was it was tucked up in the corner. We knew from the get-go it was going to be a very tough golf hole, so much so that when Keith designed it, he had no fairy bunkers. He's like, I want to give the golfers fair a shot at getting out there as possible and not put anything in their way and let the green complex beat them up.
Right.
And the green was the smallest on the golf course. It's about 6,000 square feet. It had severe drop-offs all around. It had a bunker on the left-hand side. The approach in front wasn't very big. It was probably like 5,000 square feet. And he put a massive cross bunker in to catch balls kind of going up the hillside and to ease the shot a little bit. So if you missed, at least you kind of had a bad miss into the sand trap. So the concept was good for a very tough hole. Unfortunately, the playability of it became really much a challenge. We had a lot of, if you scored well on it, it was the greatest hole in golf because you mastered it.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it was a very small percentage of the membership and players. And the general consensus was, oh, LedgeRock's awesome, except for that 17. We've never played as tough a hole. So the members really wanted to do something with it. And we've been talking to years, even when Keith was still working with, actually he just passed away last weekend, unfortunately, but when he was still working with Reese, we had talked to him and some of the design elements we added were some of his original ideas from years ago. And then we've been working with Bryce since Keith retired. Reese Jones, and we really sat down and we went through numerous iterations and we wanted to move the green, adjust the green, make it shorter, what the best options. But ultimately, they wanted to keep the challenge of the hole because at 17, you're getting near the end of a round. And like I said, it's a very much golf-centric membership. They're very good golfers and they like playing in like gap matches and whatnot and getting to 17 and it's coming down to the wire and at least they know the way around it. So we didn't want to lose the challenge of 17. But, the obvious part was for the higher handicappers to make it at least fairer for them to work around the green and get the complex. So that was where the whole concept eventually came together and the final plans late last year and working with Bryce and Reese on not moving the green to keep the challenge, but making it fairer for the higher handicappers while still making it a challenge and not making it any easier for the really good golfers. And it looks like we accomplished it. So.
Yeah, well, and I'll ask you about that here in a little bit in terms of member reaction. But one of the first things that caught my eye, in addition to the fact that you had to complete it during the pandemic, was how this project was funded, and it does point to kind of maybe somewhat of the unique nature of your membership there at LedgeRock. So maybe explain to viewers, it wasn't an all-member vote where they all were charged a certain amount to cover it. Just tell us how the project got funded and eventually approved.
Well, a number of the projects over the years, I mean, LedgeRock we're very proud to have no debt, which is great. So, all the big capital inputs over the years that were done, they've always went back to the membership and said, okay, we would like to try and do this. Who's interested? Essentially, that's how they build the clubhouse, the locker rooms, and the members club together, and they make donations, and the same thing happened for number 17. So I would say it was probably July or something of last year, they started in earnest, going to the membership and said, okay, we want to, we have a plan there for 17. We talked to Reese, we're really knuckling this down. We have, approximately it's going to cost, X, and hopefully we can get that together. We can move forward on it. So we started collecting the money, and I think early this year they had enough money in the 17 bank account to start construction. And it was just actually at the GIS. I was talking to Reese down there, and he's like, whenever you're ready to go, and I was like, oh, they're nearly there. And then I was back 2 days, and they're like, yep, we just got final approval. All the money to start phase 1, get the green sided on, and they're currently in the process of trying to see what happens here with COVID. But they have money left to start the fairway side, which is phase 2 this fall, and hopefully collect the last little bit here, depending on how the rest of the year goes to finish phase 2. So yeah, the membership is really supportive over the years. I mean, they've always been, they have been very passionate about the club, and generally it's not an assessment, it's totally voluntarily, but a huge percentage, if not all, the membership are volunteering some assistance to get the projects done, which is really, really huge.
Well, and I'm certain there are other clubs around the country and the world probably that have similar arrangements where certain things are funded in that way. But certainly was a unique way, and I like the story how you and Reese were chatting in Orlando, and less than a week later he's having to book another flight to get down to your place. But you have construction experience in your background, and so you were really hands-on with this project once it got going. Reese obviously oversaw the design and the tweaks that he wanted to make to that hole. So maybe talk a little bit about the dynamic between you and Reese. How did you guys work together, and how hands-on were you? Are those what about construction and project work appeals to you as a superintendent?
I guess for the projects, for me, it's just something different, especially in the winter time, it's something to dig into. You're kind of tired of growing grass for the summer and everything that entails. And ultimately, we also save money by doing it. It's not, I've ran the numbers a few times. It's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we certainly save, tens of thousands of dollars by doing stuff in-house, especially on smaller projects like bunker renovations or building tee boxes or something like that. We can do that very cost effectively. 17 was a slightly different animal just because of the size of the area we were working with and project. So we did do the bulk earthwork in-house. I would certainly not say I'm a shaper by any stretch, but I'm more than a bulldozer operator. So we moved there, and myself and my assistant did most of the bulk earthwork in-house. We did actually all the bulk earthwork in-house, shaped the bunker, got everything ready for a contractor to come in, and they ran the irrigation for us, and did the final tweaking and the grading, and just sodded everything for us to get it open. So yeah, so just getting into part of it with, we just started right before, like I said, after GIS, we got the approval, got mobilized, got the equipment together, and we had some other odds and ends just to kind of move some drainage and some other little tweaking before we actually started pushing. And that was when COVID hit. But,
yeah.
It's pretty social isolating, or to sit in a bulldozer with the radio on, which was great. It was like a carnage just to sit there pushing soil for a week, So it actually worked out pretty well that way. And then working with Reese, it's always been great since the initial construction and when I first met him, and just dealing with the whole company and all our designers up there is great. So Bryce Mohnton has been working with us for Reese on all our renovations and projects over the years since Keith retired. And Bryce was down, we were worried initially kind of going into with the COVID restrictions, we were worried about how he could travel and come in from New Jersey, but fortunately that wasn't, too much of an issue. He was in his car, again, social isolating. It wasn't an on-site, it's just, me, him, and depending on where we were in situations, the contractor was with us or not, the foreman. So we really didn't have any implications with that, or worries, or any concerns about spreading disease or getting contaminated or anything like that. Reese, obviously with the with the travel restrictions and being a little older. I think he was actually in Florida possibly at the time. So we did a lot with him. Bryce was bringing a lot of information back to him. Thanks to modern technology with photographs and videos and drones and everything else, we were able to get actually on one of the final visits when we were tweaking the bunker lines and whatnot. Reese was on the phone with Bryce for about an hour, and they were FaceTiming where the video was and everything else back and forth. So it actually worked out really, really well for us, even considering how we were working through with all the restrictions we had.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lessons learned in our business from this experience. Whether you were challenged by staffing cuts you had to make temporarily, or just stay-at-home orders, whatever the case might be. But there is a lot of technology at hand, and I was going to ask if you had to put on a GoPro and like ride the hole so Reese could see changes you were making or anything like that. Little FaceTime videos you're driving along with your phone. But so sounds like you were relatively fortunate throughout the pandemic that it didn't halt your progress. You were able to kind of to work your way through, I guess, shaping a golf hole. You can really socially distance from other people when you're on the back of a bulldozer or something. But the one other unique thing was timing of the renovation. I think typically in your part of the world, most courses might tackle something like this in the early fall, hoping to finish it up and then give the changes time to kind of mature over the winter, so that you've got a nice base to start the spring. You tackled this, as you mentioned, right after GIS, so we're talking early, February and into March as you were starting this, and then you were able to get the hole open for play by late in May. Having gone through that timing, is that an experience that you're like, wow, we might be onto something if we do any other future work? And I know a few more tweaks to 17 you're going to work on. Were you happy with the way that played out, and from a timing and an agronomic perspective?
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's not ideal, obviously, because the soil temp, especially this year, the soil temperatures were so low. So I'm glad we didn't seed. I'd still probably be beating my head against the wall and might not having this conversation right now. But with sodding everything, it worked out really well. I guess, during construction, the last year of construction, I'll never forget it, back in 2005, I guess, we had 12 inches of rain in 24 hours the day we finished seeding the golf course. So that was the end of September. So we had to go in and rebuild bunkers and tees. It was a nightmare for a number of 6 weeks after we finished construction. We had to refinish construction. So we went into the winter in not a great position. So the following spring, same thing kind of happened, and we had to finish seeding and sodding and growing the golf course to try and hit our target of opening. I think it was in mid-July or late June, I think, early July, if I remember correctly. So I've already kind of had experience a little bit of going through this and early in the spring, and it is kind of nice. The only negative part, like you said, is you're going into the heat of the summer. It is, there is a little bit of stress on the turf, but it is open for play. So, in hindsight, I wouldn't change it. I think it's a good timing. The hole was shut down for, we did run into some delays. The only real COVID delay we had was our contractor luckily got a dispensation from the governor because they fell under agriculture / landscaping being golf courses. So they were able to keep working, and that kept that part progressing, and the sod farms remained open because they're agriculture and landscape, so they stayed open. So that helped a lot for us. The only issue we ran into was the paving company fell under real construction, and we had to wait for them. So that delayed us a couple of weeks, because when golf reopened in Pennsylvania, they were allowed to restart work the same week. So we had a lag of a week or 10 days to get the last little bit finished up. But so with that in mind, we probably would have been finished, completed 2-3 weeks earlier due to the paving, and I think we would have been that much further along. A couple of little tie-ins still need some detail work, but the hole is open playing. The members lost, well, especially with COVID, they lost very, very minimal time going. So it worked out really well for us. I mean, I wouldn't say it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't far from it either. It worked out really well for us.
Well, that's great. And to only lose a few weeks that you can almost directly tie to the pandemic, is pretty remarkable
Mhm.
when you see some of the impacts that it had. So you got to feel good about that. I know this because I've already read the story, but you can tell everyone else that I think the members also feel good about the work. You reopened for play. Was it May 23rd? Was that correct?
I think so, yeah. Yep.
I think that's the date.
Yep.
What has been reaction from the members, and then maybe also tell us a little bit about what some of the additional work that you have planned to kind of just finish up what's taking place there on 17.
Okay, yep. The members, first of all, the president, the day it opened, he texted me and said, I think he said he birdied it for the first time, a part of it, I can't remember which it was, but he was very, very happy.
Yeah.
He finally, I wouldn't say mastered it, but he hadn't done it in a long time, so he was very happy. But the general consensus from everybody I've spoken to is, and all the membership, is that they've saved about a stroke across the board on it, which was our goal. I mean, not to make it too easy, but to make it at least fairer. I know a few people had said that we made it too easy, and then we asked them what they shot, and there was still a double bogey. So it didn't make it much easier. So time it might, but yeah, so that was the plan. So yeah, it definitely has played the way we wanted to, and it is, like I said, still a challenge for the lower handicaps, but it gives the higher handicaps a lot of options, and
Great.
at least if they get it there, they're not losing strokes. With 17, the fairway side right now, most drives land between 180 and 200 yards, and it's about from the green, and it's about a 70-foot elevation to the green. To again, a small. Well, now it's with the bent grass around it. I think initially there was 5,000 square feet. Now I think it's about 13, 14,000 square feet of approach around it. So there's a lot of area up there to hit. But we want to be able to encourage people, because the fairway kind of pinches to a point at the end of the fairway. So we want to encourage people to try and get further out the fairway. Because of the angle of the hole between the center of the fairway and the current left edge of the fairway, you gain 20 yards if you can hug the left edge of the fairway. But obviously, or very few people are that good. So the plan is to widen the fairway. It's kind of cupped a little bit right now. So the plan is to lower the left edge and push it out further, and extend the fairway out to the left, so that left edge kind of comes, more of the left third of the fairway, to encourage people so they can gain yardage. And there's also a bunker on 18 fairway that if we tweak it, we can gain yardage to the right of the fairway to widen the other end of the fairway to, it could potentially reduce people's shot down to 140 yards if they can get it all the way out there. So that's phase two. It really isn't a huge undertaking. It's just the biggest part of it is just rebuilding that bunker on 18. Just moving the soil around. So that's phase two. And we actually added a car path, which wasn't on the fairway side of 17 this spring also. And we added a tee box as part of this project over the creek and the wetlands for higher handicappers, to give them an option. So when we do the fairway side, whatever that is, we can certainly do it and play it any time, because we have the car path. We can bypass the fairway where we're working and play it as a par 3 when we're working on it. So that was a nice added inconsequential bonus that we hadn't realized till we finished it. So it was nice.
Yeah. And if the president birdies that new par 3, that you might change the hole to a par 3 all the time. You might just
there you go.
Might just lose the par 3. Well, again, super interesting story. I found it fascinating. I read and hear about a lot of renovation projects, and this one just had so many little interesting twists and turns. I was super glad that we got to feature it in the magazine. Again, that is in your July issue, which should be hitting, I would say newsstands, but we don't go to newsstands. We just go to your mailbox. Hitting that soon. Will also be on our website, gcmonline.com, where you can check that out. Before we let you go, Alan, I did want to take another turn and talk about, you've also been pretty active in the environmental arena and doing work on the golf course there, just to make it more environmentally friendly. And recently, I know that you had an effort where you partnered with a local school on a project. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, what that project was, and how you got interested and started in projects such as that one?
It actually started completely by accident. The teaching pro at LedgeRock, Andy Miller, is nationally recognized for junior golf and his efforts in introducing people to the game and teaching. So it stemmed from Andy a little bit. try to encourage, and he would have me talk to the kids, and he had in groups and lessons and whatnot. And that's kind of where the interest first started, educating younger generations of golfers and beginners. So we had a new member start a couple of years ago who was a retired superintendent from the local school district, and they had an event there, and he wanted the STEM class to create like a putt-putt course for the event. So he talked to Andy one day and was like, hey, it'd be great if you and Alan could maybe stop down there and just maybe tell them what a golf hole is, because they don't really know, or what might be a challenge, what might be fun. So that was our first introduction to the school. So Andy and I went down and we spent an hour with the STEM class and kind of walked them through a golf hole. And we were both pretty blown away by some of their creations that they'd already started on, and their ideas and thoughts and what they'd engineered. And some of them it was very impressive. So as we were walking through the school, and the teachers were like, "This is awesome. We'd love to try and do." I was like, "Well, the GCSE is the first screen program. It's something I'm kind of interested in. We didn't know where to start with it." And I explained to them what it was. And a few days later, they got back to me. They looked it up and were like extremely excited about the potential for what that offered. So we met with them. We sat down with them. We had to rein everybody back in a little bit because everyone got really excited.
Yeah.
But we decided to have two in one day. We went with high school kids in the morning. It was more just to get the feedback to see what was good, what was bad, what we should include, what we shouldn't. In the afternoon lessons and sessions we had with elementary kids, I think that was 2-3 years ago. So that was our real introduction to working with the school district. And after that, Andy, myself, various different things we've taken, just like a separate class for math class, and just run through stuff in the golf course, or he's done math with them, say with the launch monitor on the golf arena. We've hosted a couple of other bigger first green events. I think there's 3 main schools in the school district, and we're kind of rotating through them each year with it, and it's been very successful. So during one of them, again, chatting with one of the teachers, we were joking around. He's like, "Hey, is there any projects you would like those guys to do?" I was like, "No, we could always do making some bird boxes." And they were like, "Ooh." Yeah. So it kind of just started around as an idea, and next time I got a phone call from the school saying, "Hey, we got your bird boxes." I'm like, "Great." Yeah. So the STEM class at the high school met as bird boxes, and one of the teachers in the elementary school, she had a class where she brings them out to do bird watching and that sort of thing. And we had been talking about coming to LedgeRock and doing some of that, or the golf course and doing some stuff. So it actually felt really happy because I was able to call her up and say, "Hey, guess what? The high school just built the blue bird boxes for us, and we're going to put them out this spring." And so it all came together really well. So we're able to work with the high school on the creation of the bird boxes, and then the elementary school with the checking the bird boxes and visiting and the natures and the education side of it, the environmental side of it. Unfortunately, COVID hit right as we were getting everything started this spring, so everything's been on pause until the fall, but we're hoping here to get back and get the first green event going in at the end of September, beginning of October, and then try and get at least the, probably too late for bluebird boxes at that stage, but at least kind of get them out and get their feel for everything and get them started. So we're really looking forward to keeping the relationship going and keeping it. But it worked out really, a little bit coincidental, but it worked out really well for us.
Yeah, it's such a fun program that accomplishes so much, and I've been lucky in my role to be at several different facilities as they've hosted first green events, and actually kind of taken part to kind of help with those events. And it's just super cool to see. You're just, I don't know how, if you were, I don't know, surprised is the right word, but just encouraged by even the younger kids, how engaged most of them get and interested they are. And the other thing that I found interesting was, I don't know if there were any chaperones when some of the younger kids were visiting LedgeRock, but to see some of these parents who were just signed up to be a chaperone on what they think is just another field trip, and to see them get engaged and to learn. And I can't tell you the number that come up and say, "I had no idea that all that was involved in the maintenance of a golf course." So it just is, as someone in the business, it's encouraging to see that. I'm sure, assuming you had similar reactions from your experiences.
Yeah, we had. You pretty much described it to a T. It was very eye-opening to see. I want to say less than a third had ever been on a golf course exposed to golf, and maybe that number may be on the high end. So
Right.
it was just the eye-opening experience. They had so much fun. We actually, the last first green event we had, the Philadelphia Superintendents Association had, coupled with GCSA and ourselves, we had hats and some other gift bags and some other stuff together for the kids. And unfortunately, I think the hats were a little delayed getting in. So we held giving them the gift bags, and actually Andy and I went to the school a week after to just meet with the classes and be like, hey, what did you learn last week? And you have fun, trying to answer questions. And it was, again, that was awesome. Just going through each of the classes, and they all remembered it, and were like, it's the greatest day ever. And they gave us a couple of the classes that actually drew thank you cards for us all, which was really sweet.
Nice.
And the feedback in the cards is like, I never know what a golf course was, and I want to play golf, and I love golf, and the environmental side. And they were just so excited and responsive, and it just was really truly eye-opening. Actually, one other quick thing too, which was kind of fun, was the first green event we had. One of the teachers took a class and went to one of the groups into the creek, and he wanted to do like find microbes and live wildlife, or whatever's in testing the water, basically see its health. And he came back very impressed with the health of our creeks. And he found something there, and he said, it's really good, like the quality of water. I wasn't expecting that on a golf course. So the backside of that too was, we were able to tell the students and see for themselves how healthy a golf course it actually is, and it's not bad for the environment, and we're not, polluting and whatnot. These creeks were of exceptional quality. So that was the other good side of it too, to show that, as an industry, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of science involved, there's a lot of math involved, there's a lot of, it's not just mowing grass and everything else. So it's been truly a great experience, and we're really proud of working with them.
Yeah, the game has so many great stories that could be told, and I think we do a good job of sharing those preaching to the choir, for lack of a better term. It's the challenge is getting people outside the game to kind of understand and finding venues that can deliver that opportunity. And First Green is clearly one of those, and it's kind of proven it time and time again. Members at the club, were they aware of what you're doing with the school, and have you heard anything from them? Because it does, certainly puts a positive light on the club, the business of golf, when you get to do that. So have you had any member reaction to what you've done?
We actually have. A number of them are very excited, the ones that have talked about it. I believe most of the membership know we do it. And we send updates out with some pictures, and it's been on our Twitter and Facebook feeds and whatnot too. So yeah, the membership are aware of what we're doing, but the ones I've spoke to about it, and they've actually sought me out to say, hey, this is great, we're so proud. A lot of them are alumni from the school district as well, so they're even more proud to say, that's where we went to school, and we're so happy you're working with them. So it's been, the feedback has been exceptional. So on the membership side too, and they're really happy we're doing it and encouraging to do it more as much as we can.
It's a great success story. Congratulations to you, all the other, the chapter, everyone else who got involved in that. It's really growing. Unfortunately, like a lot of things, as we've discussed, coronavirus and the pandemic has kind of slowed those events from happening in all corners of the country. But you can always get more information on the First Green by heading over to the GCSA website, gcsa.org. Just search out First Green. A lot of great information there. So, well, Alan, listen, Friday afternoon as we do this, and I appreciate you taking some time to chat. Enjoyed working with you on the story. I'll remind viewers that they can read the feature story in GCM. July issue is also going to be available on gcmonline.com. You can also read a little bit more about the Bird Box project in a story we did a few months back on that same thing. So you can find that also at gcmonline.com. You can always check out more live from the courses, this one, previous ones we've done, at GCSA TV's Facebook page, the Facebook page for GCM Magazine. We're going to have a little link to all this once it's been recorded and finalized. You'll be able to see that as well with gcmonline.com. And there's plenty of resources, information at gcsa.org as well. So I know I threw about 9 different websites at you there. So check them all out simultaneously if you can. Alan, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed talking with you today.
Scott, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was exciting to chat about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to another Live from the Course, a production of GCSA TV, GCSAA, and GCM Magazine. On behalf of everyone here, on behalf of Alan, Scott Hollister, the editor-in-chief of the magazine, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again real soon on another episode of Live from the Course.